Hello and welcome back to the channel once again. It's good to see you again. In this video, we are going to take a look at all of the various admin centers that you as administrators of Microsoft 365, of Azure AD, of Purview, of Entra, of Defender, all those things, all those admin centers that you are likely to need to know about. There's a lot of them. They've changed, they've evolved over time, they've moved, they've merged. They can be very, very difficult to understand and to follow. So, without any further ado, let's take a look at all of those admin centers that you need to know about in Microsoft 365. It's coming up. So there are a lot of admin centers that you can use as a Microsoft 365 or Azure AD or Azure administrator. And when you're getting started, it can be quite hard to know where to go to do all of the things that you need to do as an administrator. But there is no one size fits all for administrators, or at least there shouldn't be. If you're doing everything, then you're probably not being paid enough, and it's probably not too good for your health. So let's take a look at all of these various admin centers, starting with the very basic one, the one where you should really start, and that's the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. Now, you can reach this from admin.microsoft.com, and it's going to take you to the page that you can see here. There are other ways to get to this as well. Microsoft do love to give you lots of different ways to get to the same place, so you can do portal.office.com and then click on admin, portal.microsoft.com, all sorts of different flavors of URLs will get you there, but I tend to use admin.microsoft.com. And this is the admin center that you need to be at the very start to do things like adding and managing users, teams and groups, roles and resources, billing, support, settings such as adding domains, configuring your organization settings, integrating apps, so on and so on. And there's some setup stuff in here as well. You can there's reports you can take advantage of, and you can get to the health dashboard as well. So I did call this the basic admin center, and maybe I'm being a little hard on it because there's actually a lot that you can do from this wonderful admin center. So it's very, very important to use this and use it effectively. Now, when doing any of these things like setting up users or contacts or administering anything within M365, you can do most, if not all, of these things within PowerShell as well. So think of PowerShell in a way as your as even another form of administration. It's not an admin center, but it kind of is, because if you imagine everything you do in one of these GUIs, these graphical user interfaces, in the background somewhere, some scripting, some coding is being run to do everything that you want it to do. So that's the first one that we've got, admin.microsoft.com. But what if you want to go deeper and administer specific services, specific functions such as security, compliance, identity? You want to do more in SharePoint, in Teams, etc., etc. Well, you can go directly to the URLs for different admin centers, or the reason why I suggest coming to this one first is that you get a handy link at the bottom of the menu of the Office 365 or Microsoft 365 Admin Center to a lot of the other admin centers here. So we have security, we have compliance, we have Endpoint Manager, Azure Active Directory, Exchange, SharePoint, Teams, and that's just a few of them there. We can actually click to expand all admin centers, and you can see we've got a lot here. So let's go through these and see exactly what we've got. Now, quick reminder to myself, really, what happens when you actually click on one? Oh, great, that's what I was hoping it would do. It actually takes you to another tab. I was hoping that I could get back to there without clicking back or having to open in a new tab. So what we've got here, by clicking on, as we did, Azure Active Directory, it's taking us straight into Microsoft Entra now, the Microsoft Entra Admin Center. So Entra is the umbrella term for all things identity in Microsoft 365. So what it's done here is taken us right into the core settings for Entra, where you can add things like users and groups and apps and register apps. So, and you'll see a lot of this sort of thing. There's a lot of duplication across some of the admin centers, where in the Microsoft 365 admin center, we could do all of this, but we can do more here. We can manage our tenants. We can do all sorts of good stuff. I must remember to blur out my tenant ID before I publish this video. If you're seeing that, hopefully you shouldn't be. But if I click on home there, what we should see is the ability to toggle the full screen view. That's let me just go to entra.microsoft.com just to satisfy a curiosity, because I'm wondering why I'm not seeing that usual sidebar that I'm expecting to see. And if I put the full URL in, I am getting that. So that was a bit of a peculiarity, shall we say. I don't know quite why it did that. Now, those who have been working with M365 and Azure AD for quite some time will think, well, historically, I've managed Azure Active Directory from the Azure portal. And you'll notice Azure AD, it took us right into Entra, not into the Azure portal. And that's because really Entra is where Microsoft wants you to be managing this sort of content from going forward. They want you to be in the Entra admin center. That's not to say that you can't still do it from the Azure portal. You certainly can. Let's show that point right now by going to portal.azure.com. And as it launches, we can see that we got so much more with the Azure portal. This is an absolute, to me, a minefield of things that really I don't want to know about for the most part. I'm going to leave that to the experts. I got into cloud technologies in M365 and Azure Active Directory, specifically for the purposes of getting away from networking and firewalls and all that sort of stuff. I had years and years of doing those sort of tasks on premises. I don't want to be doing them anymore. So fair play to all those people who still enjoy that sort of thing. But I was very pleased to leave those sort of things behind. So, Azure, what have we got on Azure though? You can see by expanding the menu on the left here, we've got Azure Active Directory right there, which is essentially what Entra takes us into, but Azure itself has a ton more stuff in there. Resources, resource groups, function apps, SQL databases, Cosmos DB. You can manage your virtual machines in here, storage accounts. Defender for Cloud is in the Azure portal as well. Defender for Cloud being the area where you would go to manage your multi-cloud instances if you are leveraging not only Azure Active Directory and Microsoft 365 in the cloud, but things like AWS and Google Cloud also. So ton of stuff in what I call pure Azure. But in my world, Azure Active Directory is the bit that I'm interested in, the bit that that I'm qualified to deal with, shall we say, and where I spend most of my time. So here, we can do the same sort of things in here that we can do within the Microsoft Entra portal. We can administer users and groups, external identities, roles and admins, administrative units, applications, identity governance. There's a lot you can do in here. You can manage Azure AD Connect in here as well, your domains again, which you could still do within the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. Lots and lots of stuff you can do within the Azure AD portal within the Azure portal. So as you can see, it's quite easy to go down rabbit holes when navigating these portals. It's very, very easy to go off topic, if you like. So we've already had a look at quite a few areas here without even trying. But so what have we been through so far? We've had the M365 Admin Center, we've had the Entra Admin Center for Identity, which, and it's important to point out actually that although the Entra Admin Center is for identity, it's actually so much more than just Azure Active Directory. As we can see here, there are more features. We have permissions management in here under the Entra banner. We have verified ID and workload identities, identity governance. So there's more in Entra than you will find in just Azure Active Directory within the Azure portal. So you'll have to jump around and find where the best areas are for you to work. We all find ways of working that are to our preference, if you like, and I tend to find myself still out of habit going to the Azure portal to get to Azure AD and managing things like conditional access from there and so on. So back to our list, what have we got? We've got, now this is described here as Azure ATP, which to me is something that has long been out of commission in its original form. So let's see where this takes us. Where are we going to end up here by clicking on portal.atp.azure.com? Let's see where we get to. Now yeah, exactly. This is where I thought it would take me to. Microsoft Defender for Identity is the more current name for Azure ATP. So Microsoft Defender for Identity is the tool which enables you to protect your on-premises assets, your servers, using the power of the cloud. So you can use cloud technology to protect those on-premises assets. So I've clearly not done this on this tenant, so it's telling me to set this up for the first time. I'll not go through the process of doing that just now. I can do that another time, more specifically in another video. But this is how you would get started, and it's taking you right into the area you need to get to. I wonder if that name should change. I'm not actually sure if there is a different portal name for it, but that seems to me a little outdated. You would think it would be something, if anything, you wonder if this should end up in the Entra portal, because it is specifically to do with identity. But anyway, it's debatable. What else have we got? One of my favorites, compliance. The Compliance Center, where we'll find all things Microsoft Purview. So that's going to take us to compliance.microsoft.com. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that we spent a lot of time in here previously, as we did the MS 102 exam guide and a few other things. So in here you're going to find all that good stuff that I love. This is my happy place. This is where I love to work. Things like data loss prevention, data lifecycle management, information protection, e-discovery, lots of my favorite things in here. So Purview is all about compliance. So if you're a compliance admin, if you're a data protection officer or a records manager, you're going to find yourself in here a great deal. And across all of these admin centers, it's important to get the permissions right that you need to have. So think about those roles and scopes, and never over permission. Always make sure that those who need access to these various admin centers have only the permissions that they need, and give them to them only on a just-in-time basis using privileged identity management, which you can find from the Entra portal for identity, or the Azure portal. You can also find it there. So that's compliance. Let's go back. Let's close off a few of these tabs because we're getting a little bit untidy. Where were we up to? Dynamics 365 apps. Now, this is something I know little to nothing about, but let's see where this takes us to. The Power Platform Admin Center. So hey to all the Power Platform folks out there. So in here you can manage your Power Platform environments. You can look at analytics for Dataverse, Power Automate, Power Apps. You can see your billing, your settings. There's a Copilot preview in here. So this is the first time I've seen anything to do with Copilot in any of my tenants, I have to admit. Copilot's something that I'd love to talk about, especially in the context of security, but there's very little to tell just now, but no doubt there'll be more to come. Resources, you can manage all your resources here, get some help and support, some data integration. You can set policies here. I know that within Power Platform. There's a fair bit you can do with DLP, data policies, so this is something that ties in a little bit with my world of security and compliance. So important to know about that as a security and compliance person, and you can create policies from here to protect data within your org. So that's something that we may do a specific video on actually at some point. That's a good idea for a video, I think, going down the road, but that's the Power Platform Admin Center. Next one, what have we got? The Endpoint Manager Admin Center, or probably more appropriately, the Intune Admin Center. Let's see where it takes us to. We click on it. What's it going to call itself? Endpoint.microsoft.com. Okay, that is fine. But I think you'll find if we type Intune.microsoft.com, we're going to get to the same place. So, well, we should do, but apparently the services are not available right now. What a great demo this is turning out to be. So Endpoint's working right now, but Intune isn't. I know for a fact that Intune should work because I've been into there before, but I digress. So Intune, this is where you're going to be if you're an endpoint administrator of some description. If you're interested in managing and administering devices and apps and endpoint security, there's a logical tie-in and overlap with services like Microsoft Defender for Endpoint here, which we'll get to when we get to the security portal, or the Microsoft 365 Defender portal, as it's sometimes better known. But here's where we can do all of our devices. We can get some reports. We can manage users in relation to their devices and apps, and lots of good stuff in here. There's a lot we can do. We can do things like compliance policies with device compliance. This ties into conditional access, all sorts of good stuff we can do in relation to mobile device management and mobile application management. So if you're responsible for all of that sort of stuff in your organization, in your role, then this is where you need to be. Cool stuff indeed. We're barely getting through these actually, but we're on to one of my old friends here, the Exchange Admin Center. This is all to do with email. Now, I find myself in here very rarely these days because in the roles that I have had in recent times, I don't tend to do much with email and messaging and mail flow anymore, but this brings back memories, or at least it would if it looked anything like I remembered it to look like. I've not done much in this newer version. The classic Exchange Admin Center is still available to you if you're more familiar with that, but this is, to be fair, this is a better, newer, sleeker, cleaner experience, I have to admit. So here you can administer your mailboxes, so you can add shared mailboxes here. You can configure mail flow settings for all your users. You can configure groups, resource mailboxes. So a resource mailbox, for example, would be something like a projector, or maybe it's a meeting room device, something like that, or and so on and so forth. So there we go. So yeah, equipment or a room resource, exactly that, and you can add those there like so. And a shared mailbox is a mailbox that isn't tied necessarily to an individual user. It's a mailbox that a number of people can be added to as delegates, and they all get that added to their Outlook. So tons of stuff you can do in here in relation to the configuring roles there again for admin and users. There's migration. Oh, this takes me back, adding migration batches for hybrid Exchange migrations. Wow. This is how I got into Office 365 back in the day. I cut my teeth doing Exchange migrations, and the first few that I did, I'm not going to lie, they weren't good. I sort of made it up, learned as I went, and it got very messy. I spent a lot of my time on the phone to Microsoft and frantically searching the internet for solutions to everything I'd done wrong. I learned the hard way. But there you go, memories, eh? We've got some mobile device access here and policies for mobile devices, reports and insights. But yeah, public folders, are they still on the go? Awful. Public folders are something that really to me are legacy holdovers from the on-premises days. really in the new world, you should be using shared mailboxes or Teams or something else, and really not public folders. But I believe a few organizations cried foul when Microsoft tried to take them away and forced them to bring them back, so they're still there. Sharing settings for your organization, loads of stuff there. And you can get back to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center from here as well. So cool stuff indeed. Memories of Exchange. Now what have we got? Microsoft Defender ATP. Where's this going to take us? Let's take a look. Oh, right, okay. So that's what this is. That's going to take us. I wouldn't have called it that. That's a hangover to an older description again. ATP being Advanced Threat Protection. This I now know, really I would call this the security portal, but really it's the Microsoft 365 Defender portal. We've been in this area a fair bit for some previous videos that I've done for the channel, so it should be fairly familiar to you. And from here you can look at your incidents and alerts for security, threat hunting, threat intelligence. You can manage your secure score for your tenant. We've talked about that before in previous videos. You can look at your assets, devices, and identities. Endpoint, so Microsoft Defender for Endpoint lives in here, and you can look at vulnerability management and do some tutorials and so on and so forth. I'm certainly not going to get into the weeds of this because we've done a lot of this before. There's attack simulation training. Exchange message trace, that's where we can do message tracing for emails to try and find messages that have been sent inwards or outwards. We've got our cloud apps there. So much going on in here. As a security administrator, you're going to find yourself in here an awful lot of the time. So that's the security center, but it's still called Microsoft Defender ATP in this list here. Okay, we're getting through this now. Just scrolling down a bit, I can see security in there. I'm interested. Where's that going to take us? That's actually going to take us to the same place. So we've got a duplication of effort in that list there. So really, that Defender ATP one should be scrubbed from the list, to be honest. Office configuration, that's considered an admin center. Let's see where this is going to take us. Okay, config.office.com. Oh wow, I'd forgotten all about this. Yeah, this does exist. So here we can configure Office policies and device configurations. So go to our policy configure. I haven't got any. Okay, so I'd have to create some. What can I create? Start with the basics. Okay, policy. What have we got in here? What is my scope? This policy applies to all users or users in a specified group or that has access to documents anonymously using Office on the web. Okay. Okay. Configure settings. Lots of stuff we can configure here. We can block macros. Clear cache on close. Do you know, I'd forgotten this existed, so making this video has been very useful for me. I'd completely forgotten about all of this. This is really cool, actually. I'm not going to finish that. I'm just going to, because I don't want to get into the weeds and start doing a granular stuff that would belong in its own video. We can come back to this. So we can do things like deployment configurations, policy management. We can look at apps health and update status, OneDrive sync, inventory, lots of good stuff in config.office.com. Wow, I had completely erased that from my memory. Power apps, I imagine this is probably, there we go, that's going to take us back into the Power Platform Admin Center. So we've already been here once already, so we don't need to dwell on that. Again, another example of two different things taking us to the same area. I imagine Power Automate will do the same. Yes, we're back in that Power Platform Admin Center. Power BI, what we're going to get here, that's going to be different, I'm thinking. Yes, Microsoft Fabric, okay. The admin portal. So here we have got our admin portal with tenant settings for, oh, that's a header, not a, okay, usage metrics. Why can't I click on anything? Okay. You can probably tell I know next to nothing about Power BI, but if you're a Power BI person, this is where you need to be. We'll not dwell on that too much. Search and intelligence. Now, where's this going to take us? Okay, not into a specific admin center, to be honest, but more into a, we're still in the admin center here, but it's taking us into, oh, interesting. Do you know, I'm not sure I've ever been in here either. I'm learning stuff as we go too. So connect content to Microsoft Search. Get started with a trial. Quickly add a connection to Microsoft Search and make popular content from ServiceNow, Salesforce, Figma. What's Figma? Searchable. Learn more about connectors. So okay, this is connecting search to other services. Interesting. Cool. Well, there you go. I've learned a bit there again, so that's handy to know. Let's go back to all admin centers. Where did we get to? So we're getting there. Security we've already been into. That's a duplication of the Defender ATP one. SharePoint, good old SharePoint. So, you know, I always used to struggle to remember the URL for this one. And it's a tricky one because what it is, it takes you to your tenant name, -admin.sharepoint.com. Should be fairly easy to remember, but for some reason I always struggled with that. But here you can manage your sites within SharePoint, your active sites, your deleted sites. You can manage your policies for sharing and access control. And from here you can set your SharePoint and OneDrive controls to most permissive to least permissive, and so on. You can specify file and folder links, permissions, and lots of good stuff in here. Access control there for managed devices, idle session signouts. We've got some settings here for home sites, notifications, pages, loads of great stuff. And for SharePoint, think OneDrive as well. OneDrive is really tied very, very closely to SharePoint. What have we got here? Content services. We've got our term store, content type gallery, migration, the SharePoint migration tool or migration manager. It's been a while since I did one of these, but I spent a few years doing SharePoint migrations as well. And the native SharePoint migration tool is actually really good, and I can only imagine it's improved since I last used it. So, and from here you can migrate things into SharePoint from your file shares, from Box, from Stream, migrate your Stream classic content to Microsoft 365, from Google Workspace, from Dropbox, from Ignite. You know, I've never come across anyone who was using Ignite. Sorry, Ignite and Ignite fans, if any of you are out there. I'm sure your product is wonderful, but I've never had any experience of it or with it. And from SharePoint Server 2010, 2013 and 2016, download the SharePoint migration tool. From here, lots of great stuff to migrate your content into SharePoint Online. And if these solutions here aren't going to help with that, there are third-party solutions that are really good as well. We've got some reports, content services, data access governance, lots of great stuff relating to SharePoint. I miss my SharePoint days. Stream. Did Stream have an admin center? Okay. So Stream being the video platform for Microsoft 365, what I would call and have called really the business YouTube, if you like, your own private YouTube on your tenants. So, oh, here we go. So web.microsoftstream.com. But we're moving Stream on SharePoint, and you can migrate from here. So it's looking like this is not as relevant as it once was. So be aware of that. So that is Stream. Then we've got Teams, good old Teams. Everyone uses Teams, don't they? It's such a good tool. And this admin center has improved and grown and evolved so much over the years. You can manage your Teams from here. Introducing dark mode for Teams admin center. How wonderful. I do love dark mode. Try it free. What? Oh, that flummoxed me. It moved, it jumped. I thought, I have to try it free for 30 days for dark mode. I'm not paying for dark mode, but that's for Teams Premium. There you go. But you can manage your Teams from here, your Teams settings, your Teams policies, your Team templates, template policies, your users, and your guest access, your external access, your Teams devices, on Windows, on Android, your Surface hubs and panels and phones and displays and SIP devices, your Teams apps and permissions policies, setup policies for apps. You can customize your store, your meeting settings, your messaging settings, your voice settings for phone numbers and operator connect and direct routing, or routing as you'd say in the States. Calling policies, call hold policies, caller ID policies, and a partridge in a pear tree, all sorts of great stuff in here. Auto attendance, call queues, holidays, locations. You can configure your emergency addresses, your network topology, your networks and locations. Enhanced encryption, end-to-end encryption in Microsoft Teams has been a thing for a couple of years now. Shout out to John Grushek from Microsoft. I know he's a big proponent of that. Analytics and reports, and notifications and alerts. So tons of great stuff you can do with Teams. I've written a book or co-written a book, I should say, on the Teams MS 700 exam guide with my good friend and fellow MVP Nate Chamberlain. So if you want to know more about Teams administration, go check it out. You can find that on Amazon. It's probably due another update, actually. We've on to our second edition of that book. Might be time for an update. Okay, so that's Teams, wonderful stuff. And we've got one left. Yammer now. Yammer's not really Yammer anymore, is it? And what's it called now? It's part of the Viva suite. Viva Engage, it's called now, really. Or it should be. Or perhaps it hasn't gone through that change just yet. And yuck, this doesn't look very nice. Looks very dated. But in here you can configure your success factors. You can upload your logo and usage policy. You can do your configuration, your design. You can configure admin settings, usage policies, everything you need to have a great Yammer or Viva Engage experience. So that leads me to the question is, where are the Viva admin centers? Why are they not in here? Where do you administer Viva? Or is it all sort of connected to Teams or one of these other admin centers? I shall have to find out from the Viva Explorers, who are a great group of people and very dear friends who know all about Viva. I'm sure you know of them. If you don't, go check them out. They're not hard to find. Okay, so we've been through all the admin centers. Now, one thing that I want to check to see if it still exists is before we had the Security Center, or the Microsoft 365 Defender Center, if you want to call it that, and the Compliance Center for Purview, we had a more unified experience, which was the Security and Compliance Center, which you used to get to at protection.office.com, I believe it was. Can you still get to it, I wonder? And it looks like, yes, you can. Now, this takes me back a bit. Office 365, Security and Compliance. Oh, but here we go. We're in the final stage of retiring this center. All solutions and features will soon be completely migrated to the Microsoft 365 Defender portal, Microsoft Purview Compliance portal, and the Exchange Admin Center. So it looks like there's pretty much nothing you can do from here anymore, but this really takes me back. So there you go. There's a quick little whistle-stop tour of all the admin centers across Microsoft 365 and Azure. I hope you found that useful. And that's it for another video, folks. Thank you so much for joining me as always. I hope you found that little tour, that whistle-stop tour of the admin centers around Microsoft 365 and Azure AD and so on and so forth. I hope you found that useful. I know it can be very, very hard to keep up to date with those and know where everything is, and things are ever changing. So hopefully that's been good for you to have a little look at. Please do hit that subscribe button there if you would be so kind. The channel's growing brilliantly. I'm so happy with all of the feedback I've had from you wonderful people. I've been out and about to the odd conference recently, and so many of you came up to me and said how much you loved it, and that means the world to me. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It's appreciated. Please hit that notifications bell as well so you never miss a video, and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. So we'll call it there. We'll say goodbye for now. Until the next time, see you soon.